We've got just a few weeks left until Gamesforum Barcelona 2025. Now, I've got just a few key figures left to speak to on our Road to Barcelona interview series. We're going to be hearing about mobile marketing trends, alternative app stores, AI, and what attendees can expect from Gamesforum Barcelona, as well as a little bit of sneak peeks as to what will be talked about. So join me as I talk to these key figures, and let's get to it. Hi everyone, and welcome back to our Road to Barcelona interview series, where I am joined by none other than Shalom, who is Managing Director, Alternative App Stores at Digital Turbine. So great to have you joining me again, Shalom.
Great to be here with you again, Mariam.
So in the run-up to Barcelona, I kind of wanted to ask you a few questions, specifically looking at alternative app stores. So first up, you've had a career that's spanning over 12 years in the mobile gaming space. I sort of did a little bit of research before our talk today. And I wanted to kind of ask you, what inspired your journey in the alternative app ecosystem?
Right. So actually, thanks for checking my background. You're right, indeed. I started 12 years ago, and back then I started with Interactive. It was a startup of around 20 people when I joined, and we did ad monetization, basically. And back then, 2012, the mobile ecosystem just started booming. Many applications, many service providers. Grew up to being acquired by Fiber and then Digital Turbine. And, around 2 years ago, when I was already around 10 years in my journey, I was leading, a big team of more than 20 people, $250 million business, 50% from the company's revenues. I was thinking, what's happening next in the mobile evolution?
Yeah.
And basically back then, the discussion was around regulation changes. You heard about different different discussions within, Epic, lawsuits with Google and Apple. And we felt that this industry gets into some kind of ceiling, and you basically had to think about what's going to happen next in the mobile evolution. And I was thinking about, my expertise, which was relatively coming from advertising. And I wanted to combine additional elements of user acquisition and alternative stores. Sounded very interesting for me. And I love startups, and the opportunity to start something new with a big company like Digital Turbine evolved, and I was offered to take this role. And I was thinking that this role can actually resemble the next 5 or 10 years of the mobile industry. And I believe that the future of our mobile industry will eventually be felt very seriously with alternative stores, D2C, because the competition is opening up, and the past decade was resolved around how the mobile ecosystem, in generally grew with different applications, with service providers. It consolidated. And now we have, due to different reasons, we have a new opportunity to create a new decade. And that's going to be a continuation of the mobile ecosystem. And I believe that this is the future.
Nice. So interesting stuff. So I wanted to ask you, we had a conversation before about the opportunities surrounding alternative app stores. Right. And, there are so many opportunities, but you being an expert in the space, what are some of the challenges that publishers face? What are you hearing? And how is Digital Turbine sort of addressing these challenges?
Sure. I think that, the biggest challenge that we all face is misconception. Because, alternative stores did not, start now. They are in the industry for the past decade. But mainly, alternative stores resemble a very strong notion with app developers as small revenues that coming relatively from APAC region. There are more than 300 stores out there. But they're all still generating very small percentage of revenues. And the things that developers did in the past decade of integrating and testing alternative stores still resembled a very small revenue for themselves. And they have this negative feeling of, hey, we invested so much, but we didn't see the fruits out of it.
Yeah.
So why we should do it again? And I think that this is what the biggest challenge of, hey, how do we change this misconception? Because there are different things that are happening if you check in the higher level, in the overview of what happens in the grand scheme of the industry. You see that there are changes with regulation, right? You see the DMA, you see changes in different countries around the world. You see that the CPIs are increasing and the ARPU, average revenue per user, is decreasing. So something has to change over here very radically in order to create new growth avenues for those developers. And when speaking with those developers, they want to create new growth avenues for them, but they don't want to fail again. And one of the discussion points with them is to show them that testing now alternative store again and being open to retest it again, it creates a new opportunity than in the past decade, because finally alternative stores are available in tier 1 countries. We're speaking about massive scale in US. We're speaking about opening up in Europe, also slowly, very soon on iOS. And that creates for many developers finally this growth avenue that they were looking for. So that's one angle. The second angle is how do you create scalable business out of it? Because eventually what alternative stores or D2C offer? They offer to take your application, integrate another payment provider, right? And distribute that to users. And this payment method will have better economics than Google and Apple. So instead of 70-30, the developer will be able to generate better revenue share. But the problem is that if you change your payment model, you can't reside in Google's Play anymore. And if you are not in the Google Play Store, then how do you create distribution? That was the biggest thing in regards to how do you create scalable business out of it? Because integrating to you, Mariam, on your phone, one applications with a better revenue share is one thing, but distributing across million users is another thing. And that was the biggest challenge. And I feel that now finally we have a strategy and technological opportunities that are available finally right now in the industry to create a scalable business out of those custom APKs that have the same application, the same game, just with different payment method, create a scalable business out of it in tier 1 countries, and finally show developers that there is a new revenue stream that is coming from those D2C alternative stores opportunities, and they are able to benefit out of it. So I think that those main things, the misconception, explaining about the user acquisition strategy, educating the industry around how that thing needs to work, and explaining how the integration processes also look like is something that we are facing a lot. Because there are many stores out there, and there are different technological, providers out there. How developer, is being approached by so many of them. How do they even have the operational capabilities to support all those stores? And for that, there are different technological companies that are available in the industry that help developers to navigate through this maze of alternative stores. And we, DT, we offer different sets of technological, facilities for those integrations. We offer the user acquisition element, which is a core and massive part of it, because you have to have a distribution strategy. Distribution strategy can be, organic users that are coming from the stores. They can be paid users that you are paying for user acquisition. Paying for user acquisition is difficult because how do you run user acquisition for custom APKs? There's so many friction points over there. Google and Apple, walled gardens, created so many friction points that prevent the user from downloading the custom APK. Maybe you have seen, a scare screen that comes and says, hey, user, are you sure you want to download this application? They will do anything in order to prevent you. So we have today technologies that solve this problem, and the regulation that is coming and that is very handy now, helping us all to explain in better ways to the developer community why they need to invest right now and to be part of it right now. Because if they jump into this thing a little bit later, then they might lose the necessity of understanding how to buy user acquisition, how to run user acquisition curves and user acquisition on alternative stores, on D2C. And there's an element of education over there. And those developers need to embark and jump on it right now. And we see already developers had this, in the past year. We've been speaking and educating a lot the market. We see the developers are now taking action. The biggest developers are already moving or integrating into in order to have alternative stores to be part of their strategy in 2025. That's already happening. And I'm really happy to see that this is part of their strategy for this year.
Brilliant stuff. So obviously, on alternate app stores, you are coming to Gamesforum Barcelona, and you're actually on a panel that discusses growth and monetization. So without giving away too much, what are you going to be talking about, and what are you most excited to hear about from your fellow panelists?
One of the things that I like is to hear about all those technologies that are being, upgraded and built in the past, years in order to grow our industry. I don't believe that there will be one winner over here or two winners that will take this entire industry to. There will be many technologies that will help each other to grow and explain and enable the industry to understand that there is better value if some of us, share resources together, share, ideas together. The thing that over here, it's interesting in Gamesforum Barcelona to hear how other companies also think about strategically about user acquisition for D2C. One of the things that I hear a lot is, hey, yeah, let's put alternative payment, and that's going to be fine. And I feel that this is missing the point. That might disappoint again the developers. If developers come to this operation, to this business without having a alternative user acquisition strategy, that's going to be a miss, and they will be disappointed again. Because it's not about how many users in US you can get in the revenue share of a better revenue share. It's how scalable this business. You can't allow yourself to have 1,000 users or 2,000 users or 50,000 users. You have to have a scalable business for each and every application. And I'm interested to hear about the strategy of those companies on how they think around user acquisition and where we can help each other. Because developers are confused sometimes. There's a lot of missed in translation, and we have to be very frank. We have to be very precise in regards to what we offer in the short term, in the midterm, and in the long term, because nothing will be available tomorrow. We will not be able to build the best stores, or Google stores, or Apple stores today, because those companies have invested billions into those stores. We need to, as an ecosystem, provide a good user experience to our users eventually, not only developers, but to a user. How do we make sure that the user is coming back again to the application, to the store? It's not enough for the user to get once into the app, down to the application, to the store, download the application, make a purchase. We want to create a repeatable operation for the user to have good user experience, to come back, download more applications, interact more, make more purchases, and come back again, and maybe even recommend to their friends.
It's about retention.
A retention for the alternative store.
Yeah.
And for that, we need to make sure that we are communicating and building those alternative stores in a proper way with our colleagues. So I think that's also something. How do there are a lot of questions in regards to how do you run QA? How do you run customer service, refunds and whatever. So I think that this, if we want to build it, and I believe that the more competition, the better, then we all have to align somehow on how we address those acute topics. So eventually it's not disappointing the developer community once again, and it's not disappointing also the users, because we won't have many opportunities to create this kind of operation in the future. And if we do it now correctly, that will change dramatically how the mobile ecosystem is looking like in the next 3-5 years.
Amazing stuff, Shalom. That's a great punctuation point to our discussion today, and so looking forward to having you join us at Gamesforum Barcelona in just a few weeks.
Yeah, can't wait.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.